Hi, if you haven't been following our travels, where have you been? I'm Iramis.
And I'm Jerry. We just returned from our 17-day Amsterdam and British Isles trip. We have 3 videos showcasing our trip. You should go check them out. And come right back here and we'll tell you the costs based on 2 people in July, and we're going to convert it to the US dollars.
Let's get into the costs. We needed a flight to get there. We took KLM via Delta direct Boston to Amsterdam, and the cost of that was $2,500, and that was for 2 people, including checked luggage. So each adult got 1 checked luggage. It ended up being a really quick flight. It's about 6 hours there and about 7.5 hours on the way back. And the flights were well done, and it's actually a pretty new plane, so we thought the price is really great to cross over the pond. The next big item that we did was accommodations. We chose to stay 3 nights in Amsterdam prior to the cruise. We stayed at the Monet Garden Hotel. It's a 4.5 star. It's directly in the center of town, and the cost for 1 bedroom was $1,152. It's important to note that that cost did include breakfast for 2 adults every morning, and we think that adding breakfast every day, it's something that kind of matters now. It's nice to start off the day with just being able to go downstairs and have a great breakfast. The breakfast was full American breakfast, not just continental breakfast. The next big item that we did have was the cruise fare. So we did have an ocean view stateroom for 2 people, and that was $2,812. Now, on top of that, you had to pay for the tips for the cruise, which were about $389, and that's for 2 people for the 12 days. It's important to note that if you want to save a little money on this trip, you could easily go into an interior stateroom, and we did some quick calculations, and that room would have saved you about $400 per person, so that would have reduced your costs. We didn't always love ocean view staterooms. We actually prefer interior rooms. It just worked out that on this trip we had an ocean view. The other things that we needed to layer onto this trip to make sure that you're getting the most of your visit to Amsterdam and the British Isles was that we needed food before we jumped on the cruise. So yes, breakfast was included, but we still needed to get lunch and dinner while we were in Amsterdam. We visited several restaurants, so we ended up with 3 nights of dinners and 2 lunches. And that cost of that came out to $225 for 2 people. The next piece that we had was, of course, transportation. And this transportation is going to include taxis, Ubers, and Bolts. A Bolt is the equivalent of an Uber in Europe. Sometimes Ubers were more readily available than Bolt drivers, and vice versa. But we did have to take a taxi from the airport and a taxi from the hotel to the cruise port, and of course from the cruise port back to the airport. The cost for that was $114 for 2 people. So the next big thing that's important when we're traveling is taking tours. And again, the number is for 2 people. So we did spend $883 on tours. Did our visit to Culloden Battlefield. It included our Heineken experience, the Anne Frank house, the boat ride around Amsterdam, Cowder Castle, and finally our Conway Castle experience, which is directly through the cruise line. So the $883 for 2 people, we thought it was great value, especially we were moving very quickly. We had some lunches during the cruise. So when we get off the cruise, when we're visiting the different places, we have to get lunch. Also throw in a little scotch tasting, some pints in different areas.
You have to try the local cuisine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that came out to about $225. And those were purely our lunches that included any pints or any glasses of cider or wine that we did have. We did have 2 additional numbers, and that's really for the street food or for random little things that we bought, maybe a pack of gum or snacks. We had an ice cream in a couple of I think we had ice cream in like 5 different places. But we did bundle all of that as just snacks and miscellaneous items. And that number came out to $160 for both of us for the 17-day trip. The final thing that we really encourage everyone to do, which is probably one of our biggest money savers, was actually our data plan. We were used to just paying Verizon or whatever carrier we had in the US. They're $10 a day to use our phone. So if you do the quick math, 17 times 10,
it's $170.
Yeah, that's $170 that we did not have to spend. So we went with a company called Airlo, and it's in the link of our video. There's a link and there's a code so you can get $3 off next time you want to use Airlo. And it's an eSIM. And it's easily an app that you load before you leave the US. And you can go through the entire process, get it all set up. And when you get to your destination that's overseas, turn on this eSIM card. Jerry and I used less than 5 gigs, and our total cost was $20 for the entire time we were there. One thing to note about that is because we were sailing so close to land, it worked on the ship. The data plan, the Airlo, worked directly when we were on the ship. It actually worked in our room many days. So just, don't say I'm going to pay for the cruise ship internet, which is usually like $30-40 a day. Try to give the Airlo a try. And especially if you're going close to land, you might find that it works perfectly fine. Jerry, is there anything that you learned that you want to tell people about the towns that we're visiting? Because one of the reasons that we did this trip is to visit towns that were off the beaten path. We didn't just go to Dublin, we didn't go to London, and we didn't go to Edinburgh on purpose because those cities and towns are very expensive. We wanted to see other places to see if we would see ourselves coming back and staying for a long.
For me, I'd like to go back to Scotland just to see the countryside. We didn't really get to see the whole countryside. We saw mostly just the city. But for me, it was cost effective to go over there, so I would think I wouldn't mind staying over there for a month or so during slow travel.
But I think in general, it was a great trip. The cost, when we get down to it, the total cost was $8,540 for 2 people, for 2 adults. That breaks down to $4,270 per person, or $251 per night per person for a 17-day trip. I hope that this video was informative and that you learned something to help you do your own travel in UK and in Amsterdam. And if you have any suggestions, comments, or questions, please put them down below. We'd be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.
And as usual, happy savings.